I welcome the opportunity to contribute to this very important debate, and I thank the Social Democrats for bringing forward the motion. It gives us an opportunity to debate where we are going forward in relation to workers' rights, in relation to employment and sustainable employment. Firstly, I too want to acknowledge the essential work that has been carried out by so many different workers in the public and private sector during the COVID-19 public health emergency. Our frontline healthcare workers, our people who work in our supermarkets, our home carers, people working throughout retail, people who collect our refuse, and so many more. I thank those workers for their continued efforts. You have carried us through these very challenging times and made so many people feel safe and done so much for so many people. It is also important that we acknowledge all workers who have made the necessary adjustments that this health emergency has presented. I know that remote working has imposed its own challenges through these difficult and continuously changing times. We are all learning and doing our best to stop the spread of the virus, and for those people I thank you also. The time for adjustment is not over. We must continue to balance public health concerns with economic and social challenges, and I believe collectively we have a responsibility to work together to address those challenges and the challenges facing our country. And it's for that reason that my party signed up to this programme for government, to participate in government so that we can have influence on change. And within the programme for government, there is a commitment to progressing a living wage over the lifetime of this government. There is an immediate challenge, however, for this year and for next year in relation to sectors like hospitality, retail, tourism, where much of the low-paid employment is apparent. And if you walk through the streets of Dublin, or if you walk through the streets of any provincial town, unfortunately, many people in this sector are still not working. And it was in that context that the previous government introduced the PUP payment and the temporary wage subsidy to ensure that people who are working on the lowest income were protected during this pandemic. And our priority as a government has to be, in the short and medium term, must be to get these people back to work, to restore employment. And that's why next week's jobs stimulus is so important, to ensure that measures are introduced to support business to bring people back from unemployment back into employment. And that's why this week the Cabinet approved the Credit Guarantee Scheme, and next week we will see improvement to the Restart Grant and a commitment to extend the wage subsidy so that people can have confidence that their jobs are going to be protected into the future. And I said the intention of the government is that to restore employment. And as we work towards that, we will move towards realising the ambition of a living wage. This will require cross-party support, and I do welcome suggestions how this can be achieved. The living wage is an estimate made by a number of non-governmental organisations, civil society groups and academics who are doing research in this area. It is based on research identifying the income required for the minimum essential standard of living for a single adult household in Ireland, conducted by the Vincentians Partnership for Social Justice. The programme for government is committed to a move to a living wage over the lifetime of this government. In this context, it is important that Ireland's statutory minimum wage and the living wage concept are not conflated. The living wage is a voluntary societal initiative centred on social, business and economic case to ensure that wherever it can be afforded, employers will pay a rate of pay that provides an income that is sufficient to meet individuals' basic needs such as housing, food, clothing, transport and healthcare. And it is for this reason why addressing the cost of childcare and addressing the cost of housing and making affordable housing a key priority of this government. And we see my colleague Deputy O'Brien already out in relation to the provision of affordable housing. The national minimum wage has a legislative basis and confers a statutory entitlement on employees and a statutory obligation on employers. The national minimum wage is a legally binding lowest average hourly rate that can be paid by an employer to an employee. The rate is set and governed by the National Minimum Wage Act 2000, which applies to all employees, including full-time, part-time, temporary and casual employees, with some exceptions. Legislation in relation to the setting of the national minimum wage has existed since 2000. The Low Pay Commission was established in 2015, and its primary function is, on an annual basis, to examine and make recommendations on the national minimum wage, with a view to providing for adjustments which do not impact negatively on jobs or competitiveness. The Commission thus takes an evidence-based approach to its recommendations, having regard to changes in earnings, productivity, overall competitiveness and the likely impact any adjustment will have on employment and unemployment levels. Since the establishment of the Low Pay Commission, the Government has accepted all recommendations it has made for the national minimum wage. The national minimum wage approach seeks to find a balance between a fair and sustainable rate for low-paid workers, and one that will not have significant negative consequences for employers and competitiveness. It has to be a pragmatic approach, providing a clearly defined minimum hourly rate for employers, giving them the freedom to pay higher rates, whilst concurrently providing a measure of security for low-paid workers. As it is legally enforceable, it provides protection for workers. More broadly, the setting of wages is a matter between employers and employees, which takes place in the context of the market, and Government does not interfere unduly in the process. There is widespread evidence that shows a minimum wage is a blunt tool for reducing poverty, as many minimum wage earners are sometimes located in households higher in the income distribution. This was found in the ERSI's report on the impact of minimum wage on household income distribution. Therefore, it is integral that in other work supports are in place for low-income families. But we should have learned from the last number of months, and we have learned through striving together against something that threatens all of us. We can work together to shape our common future. All of the economic initiatives must be centred around employment, retaining existing jobs, creating new jobs, and providing a strong focus on quality employment with good terms and conditions and a work-life balance. The Government is asserting its ambition to meet these challenges, repair the damage that has been inflicted by the pandemic, and take renewed spirit arising from these challenging times and translate it into action. Action that can deliver a better quality of life for everybody, equality within society, and a deeper sense of connection to the natural world around us and to each other. That is the most effective response to concerns about poverty and inequality. It is the best way to provide more and better opportunities for all our people. Cancórla, I want to say that the Government supports an approach to minimum wage which seeks to find a balance between a fair and a sustainable rate of pay for low-paid workers, and one that will not have significant consequences for employers and competitiveness. The Government will continue to be guided by the evidence-based recommendations from the Low Pay Commission when considering changes to the national minimum wage. The programme for Government, Our Shared Future, in its commitment to valuing those who are in low-paid employment, includes a commitment to progress to a living wage over the lifetime of this Government, and this important work will commence shortly. The best antidote to poverty and inequality is to focus on employment, ensuring people have access to jobs and that those jobs are of good quality, with a strong social insurance safety net for when it's needed. Before we make greater strides for the benefit of our workforce, our initial and unrelenting focus must be on getting people back to work and must be on preserving and protecting people who are in precarious situations at the moment. I am confident that we can achieve a better life for all. We must take the good things we have learned from the pandemic and apply them towards a resilient future. This government will facilitate and support remote working, reduce the time wasted in our cars and ensure families have more time together. I commend the government's counter-motion to the House.